said, well, they were pretty sure of it. And I'm like, for God's sake. So anyway, the German submarines only touched the territory of the United States 3 times. Believe me, they pushed the gauges almost overboard. The secret agents, they did not want to do that mission. And they were almost like, okay, see you later, here's your stuff. And then they just got over there as fast as they could. It was incredibly dangerous. So what I'm going to do now is read very briefly, it's 4 pages briefly, I guess. But stop. 4 pages is not what you're shaking your head saying. And before I say this, I just want to say, the protagonist of the novel is named Max. And his men are calling him Herr Kalu, which is the German Navy abbreviation of the rank Captain Leutnant, which is Lieutenant Commander of the U.S. Navy. So in the German Navy, they typically the men would address their officer as Herr and then the rank of the person. But Captain Leutnant is too hard to say, so they abbreviated it to Herr Kalu, which they still have the rank and they still have that abbreviation. So that's when you hear that, that's what they're saying, not something in German, well, not something that's misunderstandable. Understandable. They recently, just not 10 minutes ago, torpedoed several merchant ships in the North Atlantic. It's cold, it's dark, it's miserable. A ping sounded against the hull, now too. The Tommies found them again. Thank the Virgin Mary and all the holy saints, the sonar couldn't detect their depth. On his first patrol, Max had learned that if you went deep, you could slip away, because the Brits underestimated the depth of U-boats. The next set of charges exploded over the stern, sheared the mooring bolts off the port diesel, jumped at 2 inches from its bed, bent the port propeller shaft, shattered every glass dial in the engine room and E-motor of the motor. Now the outboard intake valve, the opening through which the diesels drew air, began to leak. In minutes, they were 5 degrees down by the stern. Max couldn't run the bilge pumps. The British would certainly hear that. He listened to these sounds of depth charges for 7 hours as the British ship peppered the U-boat. He lost count of how many. Belongings were strewn everywhere, tools and provisions spilled on the deck, rolling back and forth out of the boat. The leak worsened in the stern, dragging them down to 160 meters, almost their crush depth. Max had to order a burst of power from the electric motors every 10 minutes to keep them from sinking any lower. He clung to the periscope housing, hands clamming the darkness all around him except for the unsteady flashlight beams reflecting off the instrument panels. The crew stood to their post, but some whimpered, some wept, some stood rigid as stone, some puked. The smell of vomit thickened the stale air. One of the sailors in the control room killed his pants and the stink of it mixed with the other vile odors. Terrible exhaustion gripped Max. All night he twisted and turned the boat, never knowing if he was right or wrong until the depth charges exploded, and always the ping of the British sonar, the creaking of his battered boat, the hoarsely shouted damage reports. Sweat drenched him completely, even his underwear was soaked through. Before they sailed, Lehman had told the crew, the Fuhrer expects you men to be quick as greyhounds, tough as leather, hard as crushed steel. Max liked the sound of that as much as anyone, but after the hours of depth charging, it seemed absurd. Half the sailors were terrified, and in moments, so was he. Every time he heard the barrels drop into the water, he shouted out a course change and said a Hail Mary to himself. What kind of death would it be? He just wanted it to come quickly, not drowning, not the awful terror of men clawing at one another, fighting desperately for breath as the water poured in. When he was doing his infantry training at Donholm, the training officer ordered the cadets to put their gas masks on and run repeatedly up and down the hill. With the gas mask both pulled over his head and fastened tightly around his face, Max could breathe underneath the filter, and taking in enough air that way was almost impossible. He felt like he was choking to death or drowning. Holy Mary, Mother of God, full of grace, if they were going to be hit, let it be a direct hit. A tap on his shoulder, the chief, only 15% battery power left at Kalu. All of Max's twisting and turning and draining batteries. He nodded to the chief. Paint flecked off the bulkheads as the pressure of the water compressed the boat. The hull of the crack light opened and they went much deeper. They were at 180 meters, a handful of meters from their crush depth. Max could go no lower. This was the absolute limit. The depth gauge didn't even register. Max doing a wonderful fed there. One that layman, yeah. Gun crew stand by. Okay, damn it, I said tell the gun crew to stand by. Jawohl, Herr Caleb. Damn it, insubordinate Nazi trick in the guardhouse that they got by DeLorean. U-boat had a 105 millimeter gun on her foredeck. Not a match for a destroyer, but it was sunk here, below. They had no hope at all. At least if they pull off from the surface until the U-boat sank. The men might have a chance to abandon ship. Or some of them might. The engineers would never make it out, but they never did. Still, Max owed his men whatever chance he could give them. And you could usually count on the Tommies to rescue survivors after they sank a U-boat. So some of them might make it. So pray God the Brits would be so surprised when he surfaced that the U-boat would simply get away in confusion. The gun crew assembled in the control room, their faces pinched and drawn, eyes bulging, sweat running down their cheeks. Max looked at them. Several trembled uncontrollably. All of them panted in the thin air, their lungs struggling against the rising CO2 levels. Battle service. We practiced this in the Baltic. First man out, take up the deck boards and open the ammunition boxes. Second man, unscrew the plug in the barrel. Third man, aim at the nearest British ship. Fourth man, load the shell. Understand? They nodded. You trained for this, remember? None of them said anything. They had trained for this in a calm sea with all their wits about them, and their Royal Navy escorts dropping death charges. Chief, Herr Caleb, can you give me full power when we surface? Starboard engine, Herr Caleb, port engine is out. And give me whatever you can, but don't leave me lying dead in the water. Max looked again at his sailors, their eyes all seemed to ask the same question. What did they want with them? Was he supposed to reassure them that they weren't going to die? Good luck, men, stand by. Activate all Biltron, blow all tanks. A thin line of sound as compressed air blew into the ballast tanks. Max pulled himself up, clinging once again to the shiny metal tube. Periscope. They weren't moving. Still down in the stern. All ahead full. He heard the hysteria in his voice. Sluggishly, the boat began to rise, hesitating, then moving faster, as she shook off the terrible pressure of the depths and the weight of the water she'd taken on. 150 meters. Max closed his eyes. They weren't dead yet. 110 meters. Gun crew stand by. 70 meters. Max began to say it in Hail Mary. Stand by, Max yelled. 30 meters. He climbed into the conning tower. 10 meters. Tower clear. Hatch clear. Max opened the hatch. Unequal pressure carrying it in his hands. Air, humid and sweet, dense with oxygen, enveloped him, overcome by the richness of it. He sagged on the ladder for a moment, seeing red. Then, eyes clearing, he hoisted himself onto the bridge. Behind him, the gun crew came up, jumping quickly to the foredeck, followed by the lookouts who assumed their post on the bridge. When diesel rumbled to ignition and the boat began to move forward, a light drizzle, wet on Max's face, reduced their visibility. He took up his binoculars. To port, he saw the dim outline of the British corvette, perhaps a half-kilometer distant, no sight of the destroyer. Bang and a flash from the corvette, and a geyser of light water 300 meters off the port beam. Even in the darkness and the rain, they had been spotted right away. Fire, Max yelled at the gun crew. Fire! Destroyer bearing green 090, the starboard lookout screamed. Max turned and saw a ship coming right at them out of the night. Her foaming bow wave stark against dark water. Urine ran hot down his legs. Mother of God! The gun crew abandoned their weapons and jumped overboard. Alarm, Max screeched, his voice gone thin and high. Two of the bridge lookouts dropped down the hatch with him. The other two leapt overboard. Get us down, Max yelled, voice cracking. Men sprinted for the bow as the boat began to dock. Radio, U-boat command. Ram sinking, grid AK-57, UMAX, collision alarm. He gripped the periscope, eyes clenched shut. The destroyer hit the forward of the bridge with a sound like a locomotive slamming on its brakes, rolling the boat 90 degrees. Metal shrieked against metal, the force slammed into the deck. The impact on her bow forced the U-boat down to a sharp pitch, and she plunged out of control toward the bottom.